somewhere in Chipping Norton on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of an ordinary English autumn, a woman sat in a pub car park for 40 minutes waiting for a table. She had not booked. She knew she should have booked. She did it anyway, because the drive was nice and she had heard things. She got the table eventually. She ordered the beef. She told 3 people about it the following morning. That woman is not a marketing campaign. She is not an influencer. She has never posted a photograph of her food in her life. She is just a person who sat in a car park in Oxfordshire and waited voluntarily because she wanted to. And that is the moment you need to hold in your mind. Because the farmer's dog, the pub that Jeremy Clarkson bought for £1 million, renovated, staffed with 146 people, and dropped into the Cotswolds countryside, was never really about the beef. It was about what happens when a man who understands attention better than almost anyone in British media builds something the regulators cannot touch. And West Oxfordshire District Council, the body that spent 3 years trying to dismantle his farm shop piece by piece, never once saw it coming. Here is what everyone reporting on this story has missed. Clarkson's diddly squat operation is, by now, reasonably well understood. The farm that cost £6 million in 2008, the shop built from almost nothing. The Amazon series that turned 1,000 Cotswolds acres into the most recognizable farm in British television history. The Hawkstone Brewery generating £21.3 million in annual revenue after the company. Carlsberg Rejected is now worth an estimated £75 million. People understand the broad shape of it. What they have not fully joined up is the pub. Not what it is for. Jeremy Clarkson, the son of a Paddington Bear toy salesman from Doncaster, did not buy a failing Chipping Norton pub because he needed somewhere to eat. He bought it because every other major asset in the diddly squat universe had a ceiling. The farm was on television, which meant Amazon held the relationship. The beer was scaling fast, but brewing is a commodity industry at its core, brutally competitive and margin-thin without a distribution lock. The farm shop was generating an estimated £2 million a year and drawing 250,000 visitors, but it was operating under a planning condition that restricted its sourcing to a 16-mile radius, a leash that West Oxfordshire District Council had spent considerable energy installing and showed no interest in removing. The pub had none of those constraints. Not one. You can serve whatever you like, from wherever you like. You can stay open whenever your license allows. No sourcing radius. No planning permission required to change the menu. No broadcaster to keep happy. No dependency on a television series being renewed. It is not a farm. It is a door that cannot be locked from the outside. Now here is the part that even people who follow this story closely have almost never fully connected. The council did not accidentally create the conditions that made the pub necessary. They created them deliberately and methodically over the course of 3 years of objections, conditions, and restrictions that were documented in real time on one of the most watched farming series in Amazon's catalog. Every letter they sent became a scene. Every objection they raised became a storyline. Every restriction they imposed was read aloud to an audience of millions who had already decided, long before the council wrote a single word, whose side they were on. The council thought they were the regulatory authority. They were, in practice, the best argument Clarkson ever had for diversifying into a business they could not regulate. That is not planning. That is not strategy. That is a gift. And Clarkson took it with both hands. To understand why the pub matters on its own terms, not just as a hedge, you need to go back to the moment. It stopped being a liability and started being something else. The farmer's dog, before Clarkson, was a pub doing what aging Cotswolds pubs do when the demographic has moved on and the food offer has not kept pace. It was not in crisis in the catastrophic sense. It was in the slower, quieter kind of trouble that kills English pubs without drama, decent enough, unremarkable enough, forgettable enough to eventually disappear. The kind of place where the car park is never full and the regulars are loyal, but not numerous, and the margins are tight enough that one bad winter matters. Clarkson paid £1 million. He renovated it. He put 360 spaces in the car park, a number that is, when you think about it, the single most honest statement of intent in the entire project. You do not build a 360-space car park for regulars. You build it for pilgrims. And then something happened that had nothing to do with marketing. Lisa Hogan, Clarkson's partner and the architectural intelligence behind more of this operation than she is publicly credited for, made a decision about the pub's food offer that the broader business press almost completely overlooked. She connected the pub's sourcing, where possible, to the same supplier relationships that the farm shop had discovered under the council's 16-mile radius restriction. The condition that was meant to cripple the farm shop had, in the years since it was imposed, forced the operation to develop direct relationships with local producers that most rural businesses never build because the wholesale route is easier. The restriction became a network. The network became a supply chain. The supply chain became the pub's provenance story. The council did not give them a limitation. They gave them a competitive moat. And here is the line that matters. You cannot manufacture provenance. You can only earn it through the constraints you were forced to survive. Stand back. Look at what actually exists now. There is a farm generating a television series that Amazon pays an estimated £10 to £12 million a year to make. There is a brewery valued at £75 million growing at 134% annually and stocked in 2,000 pubs across Britain. There is a farm shop drawing 250,000 visitors a year on £2 million in estimated revenue. And there is a pub with 146 employees, 360 parking spaces, and a food sourcing story that was handed to them involuntarily by the people who were trying to stop them. Every element of this feeds every other element. The television series drives visitors to the shop. The shop introduces visitors to the beer. The beer sends people to the pub. The pub sends people back to the shop. The shop gives the television series its content. The television series makes the beer famous in markets that have never heard of Chipping Norton. This is not a farm business. This is a flywheel. And the pub is the bearing at the center of it, the one component that keeps spinning regardless of what happens to any of the others. Here is the part that makes the pub genuinely controversial in a way that most coverage has been too polite to say directly. The farmer's dog employs 146 people. In a rural Cotswolds economy, that is not a small number. It is not either a number that comes cheaply. The pub has to be full consistently at margins that justify that payroll in a market where hospitality margins are being crushed from every direction simultaneously, rising food costs, rising energy, rising national insurance contributions, a persistent recruitment problem in rural areas that no government has come close to solving. Clarkson has the brand equity to pull visitors that a normal pub operator cannot. But brand equity does not pay the gas bill in February. The real risk is not the council. The real risk is the thing that threatens every hospitality business in rural Britain right now, which is the slow, grinding mathematics of a cost structure that grows faster than footfall can cover it. Clarkson can fill the car park on a Saturday in July. The question nobody has satisfactorily answered is whether he can fill it on a Wednesday in January, at the same margins for the next decade. And there is a second risk that is less discussed but arguably more consequential. The pub's value, the reason that women sat in the car park for 40 minutes and the reason 146 people have jobs there, is inseparable from the television series. Without Clarkson's farm on Amazon, the farmer's dog is a well-renovated Cotswolds pub with a large car park. It is good, it is probably profitable, but it is not a destination. It is not a pilgrimage. It is not the place you drive 40 minutes to and wait for a table without a booking. The question of what happens to the pub if the series ends is one that the operational team at Diddley Squat will have considered carefully and that nobody outside that team can answer with any confidence. That is not a reason to dismiss it. That is a reason to take it seriously as a business question rather than a television story. Because here is what is genuinely remarkable. When you stop treating this as entertainment and start treating it as business analysis. Clarkson walked into British farming, an industry that has spent decades telling itself a story about decline, subsidy dependency, and structural disadvantage, and built a £45 million enterprise by doing something that sounds, when you say it plainly, almost absurdly simple. He made people feel something about a place. He made them want to go there. He made them feel that going there meant something. And then he built 4 separate businesses around that feeling. each one reinforcing the others, none of them dependent on any single point of failure. The pub is not the most profitable asset. It may not be the most strategically significant, but it is the one you can walk into. It is the one where you can sit down, order something, and feel for 90 minutes that you are part of a story that is still being written. That is not hospitality. That is belonging. And West Oxfordshire District Council spent 3 years of planning meetings trying to regulate the feeling out of existence. They were providing the narrative. Every objection, every condition, every 16-mile radius, every letter, it was all content. It was all reason for the audience to care more, to visit more, to wait longer in the car park. The council did not understand that you cannot restrict a feeling with a planning condition. You can only make it stronger. That is the Clarkson method. Not the television, not the beer, not the shop. The method is this. Take the thing that was supposed to stop you, show it to the audience, and let them turn it into fuel. The pub is the clearest expression of that method in the entire operation. It exists because of the pressure. It is valuable because of the pressure. And it will outlast the pressure because the pressure is already part of the story. The only version of the farmer's dog that fails is the version that stops being interesting. And given everything this operation has already survived, interesting does not appear to be something Clarkson is in any danger of running out of. If you found yourself genuinely thinking about a Tuesday afternoon in a Cotswolds car park, do subscribe and tap the notification bell. And the video on your screen right now is the one we'd recommend next. We'd genuinely love to know, have you been to the farmer's dog? And if you have, did you book or did you just turn up and hope for the best? Drop it in the comments. Thank you, as always, for watching.